failed it already?
There it is. There it is.
I don't hear anything.
The music's playing.
Not in my headphones, but I'm going to pretend.
Yeah,
It's the magic. Oh, there it is. It's the magic of podcasting. Live from your ESG air fryer, it's a Business Pants Friday show here at January 10th Studios featuring analyst Hole Matt Mascardi.
Hey-ho.
On today's show, 2025 predictions. Your 2025 prediction show. Wow.
Wow. You're excited about this.
And a humbling recap of our 2024 predictions.
Yeah, they were not great. We are not good at predictions.
I don't think mine were terrible. Mine are all right.
I got one like on the nose, like nailed it.
Really?
Great. Yeah. Not so much everything else.
I don't really believe it. Our show today is being sponsored by freeflowanalytics.com, the only platform measuring board power, connections, and performance for free. There's also some news stories on there, too. So, not many. If you want to know the kind of stories that we're tracking, you can go onto the landing page there before you do your search, and you can look at some news.
Oh, by the way, if you're watching the live stream and you're not, there's Damien is a black hole, so you can't see his face. Because Damien, where are you?
I don't trust my internet. I'm in the
like
middle
in
of Maine.
Quicksand somewhere.
I'm by a frozen pond, a literal frozen pond, where I just saw a man with his auger digging a hole, cutting a hole of the ice so he could catch a fish. I don't really know why.
Are you going to join him after the
his
show?
house is so nice and big. I think he probably already has a lot of fish, but whatever.
He's going to buy a fish at Whole Foods and put it in the ice and then pull it out.
Well, it'll be a long drive to Whole Foods from here, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. You ready for this?
Yeah, let's do this. I don't have
I feel like we have a lot.
music for this, but let's just
Come on,
go
pick
with
something different.
No, there's nothing.
No, that's not different.
Yeah, it's the same. We'll go with it.
I'm surprised I know you have access to so many different themes and sound effects. I'm always surprised that you just take the same old lazy route. I don't understand that.
How much can I do? I'm one guy.
Let's start with our 2024 predictions. Let's just go back and forth a bit. Or do you want to do that? You want to go back and forth?
Yeah, let's do that.
In no particular order, I'm starting with mine that I got kind of wrong. Okay? And I'm not going over every single prediction because that would be boring. But here's one. Here's one that I got kind of wrong, but maybe I got kind of right too because I don't know if I was being sarcastic or not. I said that BP, British Petroleum, BP,
I know them, yeah,
was going to surprise everybody and hire an Asian pro ESG CEO.
No, well, you got the opposite of that.
And then I said that Shell was going to buy BP after its shares tanked. But I think maybe I was being sarcastic because who would believe such a thing?
You know what?
But,
you can't say that.
Matt, the opposite thing happened. They hired a Canadian who's not Asian as far as when you look at the globe.
As far as we know.
Well, what I meant was like actually from Asia, but living in Asia. But he's clearly not when you look at the globe. His name is Murray Oceancloss, and he is decidedly anti-ESG. And of course, so the shares did not sink. It's so maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know what I was doing there. I knew that was never going to happen. So,
well, I would call that wrong. I
call it stupid.
You can't say your prediction was a sarcastic prediction and then say
I don't even know what I was thinking. Why was I making such a prediction in the first place? I don't understand.
Because you were following your quiet East Asian male succession plan.
Which is kind of blown up last year, I think.
It doesn't apply to anything except tech is what we're really finding out, right? Like, Starbucks fired their East Asian...
very quickly.
Quickly. They basically said, like, okay, every other industry needs people to bring attention to the company, where the tech companies are doing the opposite. But we also...
Why? Why is this? Well, because the tech companies...
stay on the board.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the tech companies are hiding behind the fact that there's really a secret control there. It's like a guy or two guys who actually control everything.
So as soon as there's not some secret cabal controlling it, that cabal being one guy who is a white guy who founded the company, Then you have the problem of other stakeholders don't like East Asian males.
It's kind of like
Asians. I don't know, something like that.
It's sort of like the NFL. Like if you're a minority hire, if you're a coach who's not white, you kind of last like a year. You basically have a year to figure everything out. But
yeah, poor Gerard
if you're,
Mayo.
but not just him. It happens pretty frequently. They don't just like Laxman Narasimhan. They give you like a few months to figure it out. A few months. That's it. So anyway, that's my first wrong prediction. What do you have?
Here's my straight up wrong prediction. Like I'll give you 3 super fast wrong predictions because I made 3 Twitter predictions.
Okay.
All of which were dramatically wrong.
Go ahead.
Number 1, Musk fires Linda Yaccarino. Really?
Yeah.
I suggested that he actually realized that she was a DEI hire.
Mm-hmm.
And is fired.
She is a DEI. Actually, to the code of the law, she is a DEI hire in a sense because she actually did not have the expertise necessary to run Twitter, according to what they claim DEI really is. I'm not saying that's what I think. I'm saying their understanding of DEI is that no woman or person of color has any ability to actually do a thing.
I mean, Musk is currently saying that the LA fire chief, because she is a she,
let's not talk about it.
She is a lesbian.
Let's not do it. And black.
The reason why there are fires on Earth.
Let's not discuss that. It's too troubling.
I also said that Trump would return to tweeting full time, and Truth Social would fail to go public, and it would die. That was wrong.
I wish that was right.
And Twitter records record profits as advertisers pour back in. I was wrong on basically everything about Twitter. I was wrong.
Yeah. All right. Here's something. Let's stay with tech. Here's something that I think I was wrong about, but I also was kind of weirdly right about again. See, I have a hard time admitting when I'm wrong.
This is a trend.
But check this out, Matt. I said on April 5th, our show was recorded on, no, I'm sorry, January 5th. Our show was recorded on January 5th, and I predicted that Apple would develop a game-changing AI product, right? Which is wrong. They did not.
Yeah,
in 2024, they actually did not develop a game-changing AI product. But 3 days later, on January 8th, Apple announced the release date of its Apple Vision Pro.
No, you are wrong.
But that's kind of weird, right?
No,
I mean, I got okay.
Wrong.
Right.
You said something different. They didn't do that thing.
And it's not an AI product, and it failed.
Yeah,
so
that's correct. That part is correct.
But they did release a product, though.
Well, here is my maybe right. This is close to right.
Yeah.
So I made a prediction that I said that there's no actual CEO turnover in 2024. Every white male CEO would actually not. They would announce they were like, stepping down as CEO and all that stuff, but they would all become executive chair.
Okay,
which to the rest of the world, outside of you and I, the rest of the world views is that they don't even think that's a thing. They don't care about that. What does that even mean?
But
we know that means you work 70% of the hours, or you make 70% of the money and work 12% of the hours. It's the greatest possible job, right? Executive chair. And I also said that they would replace themselves entirely with women, so they'd effectively stay.
We know that's not true. Yeah.
So in that spirit, I chose Bob Iger would step down early and be named executive chair again.
I mean, who knows? Who even knows what the hell is going on at Disney? So that's a hard one.
I said Disney's co-chair Dana Walden would be named CEO.
That's wrong.
And set the stage for Iger to boomerang back in 2027.
But Dana Walden still might be the CEO, right? Is it?
That's why it's maybe right.
All right, okay. But she's not going to be in this climate, in this political climate. It's not going to be a woman. We know this.
They're definitely not going to be black.
No. No, or a woman.
Asian, forget
it.
Yeah, no,
not going to happen. All right. Here's on that note. Here's one that I definitely got wrong. I tried to look around, but I couldn't find any evidence of this being true. I said that one person would jump from being the chief head of human resources to the CEO. So they would be you know what I'm trying to say. They would be what's the word I'm looking for when you're promoted? They'd be promoted from the head of human resources to CEO, like Mary Barra. the most famous version of this, who led human resources at GM and became CEO. But no, Matt, I think she's like the only one who's ever accomplished this. No one else managed to do this, and yet people love Mary Barra. Don't they seem to really love her?
Who loves Mary Barra?
She's on the top of a lot of these lists of like the best, most powerful CEOs.
That's because she's like the only female. You need like
Okay.
someone, right? Like you need
But still,
someone.
why is she the only one who's managed to jump from head of human resources to the CEO position? Why?
That's a
Why
good
is she the
question.
only one?
That's a good question.
So
You
I
also
was
predicted that
wrong.
that someone would be a man. And
I did, but
you
I'm not
were-
gonna. I'm not gonna
wrong about
reveal
that,
that.
too.
Yeah.
Following on my executive chair, white male executive chair, I suggested that the pressure on Target Brian Cornell, the CEO of Target, would step down
Oh.
to executive chair,
Okay.
and Claudine Gay would be hired as
Oh.
the CEO,
Oh.
setting
Wait.
the stage for him to boomerang. That's what I said.
Whoa.
Not close
That's-
on that one.
Yeah,
Not
we
close.
weren't reading the political tea leaves there. How about a few that maybe I kind of almost got right? I said that an antitrust case out of the EU would hit a U.S. tech company. I said maybe Meta, maybe Alphabet. I kind of right. There was a pretty significant antitrust case, but didn't actually come out of the EU. It actually happened right here in the U.S., and that was Alphabet, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you half
Partial?
credit for that one. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Let me stick with another one. One more. I kind of right, I suppose. I said that there would be an even bigger cybersecurity scandal, but I guess that's kind of a weak prediction. I mean, but now in November, the FBI confirmed reports that China was compromising a bunch of U.S. telecommunication companies. Does that count? Is that a bigger
I mean,
cyber scandal? No.
when you make as vague a prediction as there will be a cyber
I know that was
security
terrible.
scandal, like you could count anything. and be
I
right.
will say this though. I was on the verge of something because one of the biggest ransomware attacks in the country last year was at Change Healthcare, which is a software controlled by the company United Health Group, where Andrew Whitty is CEO and where the named executive officer Brian Thompson was murdered. Right. So there was something going on. Right.
Look,
I mean, kind of.
I'm not
like
giving you credit
kinda.
for this. Like, because
All
you
right.
could count right now.
I
the
tried,
fact that
I tried.
My daughter figured out my phone password. And
tried.
Changed
Did
it
she?
out. Or, they all know my phone password. It's like the same. As
Even
my
I know your
ATM
phone.
pin.
Even I know all your passwords.
Everyone knows my. It's like this. I'm the least cyber secure. But you didn't even mention the fact that like a Windows update crashed all of transportation for like a
Yeah,
month,
except
you
it
know?
was
Like,
their own. Except it was like it was Was it CrowdStrike or Snowflake? It was CrowdStrike.
Yeah.
And it was their own update. Like no one actually busted in. They updated their software wrong, right?
No, I know, but you could like your vague prediction. You can just
I know.
count that. You can just
Okay,
count that.
give me this one then. I predicted a high-profile assassination, but I predicted it at COP29
Yeah.
in Azerbaijan. But still, there was a high-profile assassination last year. I mean, I was onto something,
I'm going to give you a quarter point for that one.
right?
That's
Because
not-
I was predicting unrest and anger from stakeholders. Is what I was predicting.
let me show you what a correct prediction looks
Okay, let's
like.
go.
100% on the nose
Okay,
correct
let's go.
prediction. And I'm going to read it verbatim. Quote,
do it.
In 2024, generative AI causes one death, not
come on.
auto-driving cars, but
Oh,
chat GPT persuasion.
Right?
That's what I wrote down.
There was more than one death, I feel like. Wasn't
I'm
there a
saying
few
that-
deaths by suicide?
There was one particular case in Florida
What?
where it was a kid with a chatbot convinced
Uh-huh.
he loved the chatbot, and the chatbot convinced him to basically kill himself.
And he did. He did.
He
Oh.
did. That's
Okay.
100% correct. There's no getting around it.
All right.
I'm right.
All right, fine, whatever. All right. Before we move on to 2025 predictions, I will say that here's who I said would win the year last year. I thought it was two dudes from California. One guy I picked was Gavin Newsom, which, I mean, it almost happened, right?
Close. Yeah.
So without the misogyny of the United States, Kamala Harris should have been elected as president. And so what I'm what I'm thinking is that if Gavin Newsom had been the nominee, which a lot of people were thinking might happen, he definitely would have beat Trump. So, right, because there wouldn't have been the misogyny against Harris. So I
Every
kind of was on
prediction
the something.
every prediction requires the mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
Of, if this had happened, then I would have been correct. Yeah.
And I did say the other person who would win the year was Zuck, and that's not correct. It was really
No,
Musk who
it
won
was
the year.
Musk won
Yeah.
the year.
So, yeah.
My final close,
Yes.
almost prediction was I actually said the anti-ESG movement would end.
Oh boy.
And DEI would replace ESG. It would become
Well-
an anti-DEI movement.
I mean, you're kind of right because people don't understand ESG, and they do understand hatred towards women and black people. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was right about the substance of that, but I went on. My problem was that my prediction
Oh,
went on.
you didn't
I
shut
went
up,
on
yeah.
to say there would be at least 5 congressional hearings targeting liberal company DEI policies. And there was
Oh.
only one. It was only about Boeing, and they were searching for spirits like,
Maybe this year.
DEI policies.
Maybe this year.
So I think I was a year early on that second part. So
All
I
right.
give myself half credit there.
Ready for 2025 predictions?
Ooh, yeah, let's do it.
Come on. Do we have a 2025 prediction music?
No, but I'm going to play this. Oh, no, I'll play this. Here we go. Yeah,
Okay.
let's predict some stuff. Prediction time. Are you going to predict
okay.
first, or am I going to predict first? Go back and forth.
Well, how do you want to do this? Do you want to go back and forth? See, I have 2 categories. I have a bunch of nerdy kind of ESG corporate governance thoughts that we can have a long-winded conversation about. And I also have a bunch of general predictions, like like a CEO who steps down, that kind of thing.
I didn't categorize. I made like 6 predictions, and then I made a set of absurd predictions that are like one-line.
All right. So why don't we just start with the boring first? So I want to just talk about the state of ESG and corporate governance. These are some of my thoughts for the upcoming year, and these are in no order. I've kind of grouped them, but feel free to chime in. Feel free to just let me drone on if you find that you just want me to end it more quickly. I'm going to start with disclosure. I think that next year is going to represent a huge wave of reduced disclosure. I think it's the next iteration of the anti-ESG movement is that they're basically going to try to just pull back releasing data in general, right? I mean,
I agree with that.
and I think part of that not only comes from the murder of a named executive officer, because I think you're also going to see a reduction of actual information about directors in proxies and on websites, but also I just think the anti-ESG movement, mostly because of Musk and Ramaswamy, are gonna target disclosure, because we know Musk hates disclosure. We know Musk hates answering to the SEC. So to me, I'm just worried that this is the start of rolling back disclosure.
Well,
So you okay with that one?
yeah, I totally agree with that one. And the one that I have that's closest to that is effectively, I'm predicting that Texas is the new Florida. Texas is going to get an influx of incorporation, and
Okay, I have something like that too.
because of regulatory easing, disclosure easing. Basically, every company, it'll be like a company's holding up a sign saying, "We really don't like women or gays or people of color, and we definitely don't like anyone asking us questions." That's the
Yep.
T-shirt they're gonna print for everyone who incorporates in Texas. But that Zuck just closed his fact-checking office in California, and he's moving it to Texas.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
This is going to be the ongoing. We're going to see all of the tech bros, the libertarian fake, tech bros, college dropouts who are running Earth, all go to Texas in order
Yep.
to stop disclosing stuff and doing stuff.
Which is ironic because he claims that they're leaving California because California is biased, and so the suggestion is that people in Texas are not biased. Is that what he's saying?
I love the irony that the way they got all their money was by relying on Delaware law and the capital structures that exist. All these rules made it possible for them to both get grants and build companies and
maintain
shit
control,
tons of money,
Yeah.
maintain control, and they're so pissy about big diaper baby pissy about every little thing now that now they're like, we think we should have no rules. And they got all their money because the rules were in place to make it possible for them to get all their money. They'll tell you like differently, but you're fucking billionaires. So
not to mention that they went to California in the first place because that was the source of capital they needed.
Because that's where all the smart people were.
That's where all the capital was.
Like that's all the capital was.
Who were willing to give money to people who had no track record of accomplishing anything.
It's unbelievable.
So let me just jump to that then. I did have a prediction about the Musk effect for the 2025, and I agree with you. I did think that there would be a greater re-domestication push, like you just outlined, and I actually think that we're going to see shareholder proposals that reflect this. I think that they're going to be anti-ESG proposals suggesting that companies relocate out of blue states. I think the next 4 years in general, we're just going to see the blue states and red states continue to kind of exist in different orbs.
Yeah, it's basically going to be U.S., Europe, and U.S., Russia. I don't know what's the other part of it. Like it's like two different U.S.s. I think you're right. Yeah. And
to your point about tech bros, I actually think that for the first time, we're gonna see the influence of the toxic. This is part of my Elon Musk effect that I think is gonna happen next year. We're gonna see the influence of like the toxic bros in maybe some activist investor campaigns, maybe some proxy cage matches. We've seen the Nelson Peltz types, but we haven't seen that kind of degenerate, Musk-loving, Bitcoin billionaire type who are going to try to get into these companies and wreak havoc. I think we're going to start to see these horrible types kind of making their way into that world.
So are you thinking like National Center for Public Policy Research making an activist play at a company, basically trying to like disrupt them, or
not those kind of
themselves?
Yes, not those kind of boring bureaucrat types. More like the flashy, like Lamborghini driving, women hating like types, like the real
blah blah
the
blah.
real bratty kind of tech bros.
How dare
so that's what else do I have? Oh, I have a predictions about anti-DEI board composition. So I think we're gonna see for the first time, because of the anti-DEI movement, I think we're gonna see a sharp drop in new directors that are diverse. I think that's kind of an obvious prediction. But also, I think we're gonna see an increase in overall board size in the sense that instead of actually replacing diverse directors, I think we're just going to see an increase of white male directors like that happened at Meta Platforms. I think they're just going to be adding a bunch of white dudes to boards for absolutely no reason. I don't know why. They'll just add them.
So I'm going to just piggyback on that. Not only do I 100% agree, but that is one of my predictions. By the way, I phrased it was the prediction is men finally get some power. I mean, finally.
Yeah. Well, this is their window, right? To reclaim the power they never lost.
And they use the meta method, which is increase the board size
for no reason.
All men, for no reason, at all men. And you go from like a below average, an above average, level of female participation or inclusion of some kind to below average. And in fact, I pulled the data on this. There are 9 boards in the United States that by adding just one more guy, you increase the board by one person. If you make them a white male, you would go from having 50% or more female representation to less than 50% female representation, from a positive female power gap, of which there are very few companies, to a negative female power gap. And but keep the companies highly democratic. So those dudes get to push anyone around, like everyone's got a say.
Well,
right?
Yeah. Well, that aligns exactly with my prediction because my thought here was that they're not going to. It's kind of like ugly to remove people of color, to remove women. So the best method is to dilute their power, right?
That's
dilute their influence just by simply adding more bodies.
And if you're on the board of Cardinal Health, HP, or Stryker Corporation, all you got to do is find one white guy to join your board, and
I think they'll find them.
I made an honorable mention too because these are real lists. I used real data to generate this list. Honorable mention was Cracker Barrel, which has to be somewhere on Robbie Starbucks' list of, like, isn't Cracker Barrel, like, doesn't it feel like one of those companies?
Red Steak
like
restaurant.
Red
I don't even know. I've never
Steak-y?
been to a Cracker Barrel. Yeah,
I
it
mean,
does
I
feel that
haven't
way.
either,
Yes,
but it just feels that way to me. I think it's
it
the word
does.
barrel, maybe. I don't know. Maybe the word
Or
barrel.
how about Cracker?
But
Forgetting the obvious.
But they are one Robbie Starbuck away from negating female power. There's a handful of these
Dilute.
companies that you can
Dilute.
just add a man and you tip the scales back in men's favor. Finally. I mean,
Yeah.
finally, men get it back.
And again, I also think that as part of this, I think we're going to see the ages of these new directors be significantly younger.
Ooh, I like that. I don't think that's going to happen, though.
Okay. Let's move over to the SEC. I think that the SEC is going to move to greatly restrict shareholders' right to submit proposals. I think we're going to see a significant decrease in environmental and social proposals, both in the ones submitted and the ones that the companies remove. I think that's kind of an obvious prediction.
Yeah, with the caveat that
Yeah.
now the anti-ESG proposals, the anti-DEI proposals are part of the ENS proposals.
Mm-hmm.
So the SEC has to figure out a way to allow the anti-proposals in, but not the ones they don't like. Like they have
That's
to
the trick.
ExxonMobil it, right?
That's
like
the trick.
they have to I don't know how they do that, but I do have things on shareholder rights coming up. So I'm with you on that motion.
So not only will we see fewer proposals, but we'll also, of course, see a decrease in the support. The percentage of support for these proposals will continue to go down.
Thank you.
I also
voting policy.
I also think we're going to see a new active conservative anti-ESG proponent. Like we've had the two centers, the National Center for whatever policy or public or what are they? I don't even know what they are. I think we're going to see a third player this year, a third obnoxious,
really?
horrible,
Player.
anti-trans, racist proponent coming along.
That's exciting.
And finally, in some of my predictions, finally, these are just my very ESG-ish, very wonky predictions. I think what we're going to see is I call this category the blame game oversight greenwashing section. I think we're going to see an increase in board level committees in general, partly due to the fact that they want to do something, but really it's partly to pretend that they're doing something. So we're going to see more AI committees, more cybersecurity committees, more succession planning committees. And again, I think this is just to make it seem like they're doing something so they're not sued or people don't get angry at them. But I think we're going to just see an increase in committees in general.
I like the idea of protection via committee. Does that mean they're going to have like a DEI audit committee to audit whether DEI matters or not or whatever?
Well, I think they'll be very greenwashy. I think they'll either be to appease a certain stakeholder sect or it'll be to fend off a certain angry maybe stakeholder sect that wants to sue. But whatever it'll be, they won't actually be doing a thing. But they'll appear to be doing a thing. That's my sense.
I love the appearance of doing things. That's my favorite.
And speaking of the appearance of doing things, I think we're going to see an increase in co-arrangements, like co-CEOs, co-chairs. Because I think that people we're in a blame world now, right? So there's fires in California, and Trump and Musk are immediately blaming things. Social media is blaming. So I think that the more co-CEOs and co-chairs we have, it makes it difficult to know who to blame. Or maybe you can just sacrifice this co-chair and you can keep your job. You know, it's kind of the blame world. It's blame defense.
Huh. So in this world, you have, let's say, 11 board members and a CEO on the board. You have a committee for everything that anyone could sue you for. AI, DEI, ESG, cybersecurity, whatever. You got a committee for that. The committees are generally 2 to 3 people. But you don't have one CEO. You actually have co-CEOs and co-chairs.
Yeah, why not?
You have co-chairs of every one of those committees.
I was going to predict that, but I thought that'd be a step too far.
This is the
maybe
most
that's
amazing
next year.
thing. That's the most amazing thing. Everyone's a chair and no one's to blame. That's gonna be great.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. So those are my very wonky ESG predictions for 2025.
All right. Well, just sticking with the little bit of wonky.
Yeah.
I think this is 2025 is the year we say goodbye to shareholder rights.
Okay.
I actually think that they're going to abolish say on pay. They're not even going to do
Wow.
advisory. They're going to abolish it straight out. And
Okay.
the data actually wouldn't disagree with them. The percentage of times that investors agree to pay is incredibly high. Doesn't happen that often that pay fails. When pay fails, it's an advisory vote. In fact,
Yeah.
we've covered stories here where a company has given excessive pay. They've had engagements and investors have yelled at them. They said, sorry, we won't do it again. And that's
Right.
it. They didn't take
Yeah.
the pay back, right? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't reverse.
And often some of the votes against pay are not even really about pay. They're angry about a share price that's gone down too low.
So think about the secondary and tertiary effects. If you abolish say on pay, how much pay disclosure do you even need?
Well,
'Cause
I was going to
investors
say,
don't-
yes,
to say
this
it.
aligns. I was going to say this aligns with my prediction because really, don't forget that the say on pay movement was combined with a big increase in pay metric disclosure, right?
Exactly.
So I agree with you that both will eventually unwind them because as you reduce disclosure in general, you're killing the fun and incentive to vote against pay in the first place because it's going to be more opaque and you're not going to know what's going on. And yeah, so I agree with you.
I also think 2025 is the year we start to see the reclassification of boards. Boards move to actually classify themselves.
To protect themselves against who?
Now all of a sudden you cannot, like, there's an activist event, you can't challenge a single, like you're only a small number of the directors are up for vote in the first place. You can't take over the board all at once. Investors hate a challenge. And frankly, investors aren't voting against board members anyway. So why even put them up for a vote every single year? Why have the right?
I agree with you, and I would categorize this as part of the Musk effect. So let's not forget that Tesla is one of the few S&P 500 companies that remains classified, and it is just to be a pissant, just to be annoying, because there is no reason why investors at Tesla shouldn't have a say on those directors every single year. So I think you're going to see a lot more, in general, a lot more copying of the kind of things that Elon has gotten away with at Tesla, including redomestication, classified boards, outrageous pay. I think you're going to see the one thing that I didn't forgot to mention is that I think you're going to see pay is going to start to get reconfigured for higher payouts that kind of emulate what happened with Musk. I think you're going to see long-term pay periods start to shrink. Because I think they're gonna find just any kind of method they can to reward CEOs more quickly. Because their tenures are falling anyway. So why not? So why wouldn't you reconfigure pay plans to get them paid more quickly? Because they're not even at the company as long as they used to be.
They say this about the NFL and sports teams, right? It's copycat leagues, right? Like basically one person sort of like challenges the league on a certain thing. They either push the rules to the limit or they come up with a new strategy, and then everybody else over the next 2 or 3 years copies them. The fact that Musk's pay went through years ago and then went through legal challenges. Some companies copied it, but very few, not too many copied it because they wanted to see the legal challenges settle out. The repercussions to Musk were zero. The legal challenges went against him. He put it up against shareholders. It went against him again. He redomesticates. He's not going to lose a penny. He's going to keep all his money. And when you see, we can make outrageous pay, and even if we get sued for it, it doesn't cost me anything, then you're absolutely right. Everyone's going to do that thing.
And let's not forget that where you're right, too, is that the copycat thing can go both ways. Originally, it went in a good way, right? Because all companies started to declassify their boards. All companies started to add diverse
Proxy
board members.
Right.
So you're right. And I think when you have Musk and Ramaswamy, two of the people that probably abhor regulation the SEC, ESG industry, the most out of anyone in America, I think you're definitely going to see things start to go the other way.
I mean, they are just two people who hate to be told that they don't know what they're talking about, and their
Yeah.
whole life is really just pushing back against anyone who knows something that they think they know better, even if they don't. Following that vein, I actually think if you are going down this path by the end of 2025, why have a proxy voting policy at all? Why?
You mean if you're like Vanguard, or who, like if you're what? Who?
I mean, if you're so what we're seeing in this, I'm wrapping this into the anti-ESG bills too, because the anti-ESG bills keep forgetting that G is in ESG. Like they just say like you can't consider environmental, social, and governance factors, and they're trying to like get that legislation passed. In some places, it has passed. In fact, Wyoming.
I was gonna say, yeah. Go ahead.
Wyoming just included language stating, quote, assessing corporate board or employment is evidence of having a social agenda and therefore banned.
Right. Yeah.
Assessing the board.
And I think didn't that just happen in Indiana too last year? I think they did mention governance specifically. Yeah.
Outlawed G accidentally next to ENS because they meant ENS, but they outlawed G also. Why have a proxy voting policy? The policies effectively are increasingly illegal because you're voting against the company, and every vote against the company could be considered discrimination, could be considered political, could be considered like a social good. You could get sued for anything. I think 2025, we actually see, and we just saw it with BlackRock, they're just going to stop writing into policies.
Yes.
The policies are going to be all nothing burger, as in we have no policy. Our policy is everything is on an ad hoc basis.
Ad hoc. That's the policy.
Because everything we say could be used against us.
So what BlackRock just did is remove the language that required 30% of boards to be diverse. I think that their figure was at least 2 women and 1 person of color, and they removed that language.
Yeah, they did. Good job for you. But I actually think this is a boon for free float.
Everything's a boon for free float in your twisted mind.
Well, look, if you still have to vote, right? But you can't say anything in a policy. You can't do anything with that. Like if you set a guideline of like 30% diversity on boards, and you cite a McKinsey report that says that might be good for a company, what is better than having free float data on individual directors and targeting a director that underperforms?
I'm with you.
Than saying like some like using an axe to fix a scalpel problem that is just add a couple women to the board. Like that's not,
and people,
that gets you in trouble. The data doesn't get you in trouble when you can say, look, here's the 5 data points we use to assess this. It's just the data. It's not a social agenda.
And people, I don't look, listeners, I don't care if there's just 2 of you or 2 million of you. Don't give up. Just don't give up the fight. I yelled at people at the end of 2024 about this. Don't stop. Don't give in to this because you're right, Matt. For the next few years, even if you fire an underperforming CEO who's white man, they're going to claim it's a political move. They're going to claim it's an ESG move. They're going to claim it's about diversity. Don't just give into this. Don't just give up.
Like you cannot
fight back. Create your own narratives here.
You can't coward your way like these DEI flippers did, because you're afraid of some lawsuit or afraid of some blowback. You have to arm yourself with the data. Take the lawsuit on. Like this is my problem with Arjuna last year. I know they don't have the capital to fight an ExxonMobil, right? I know that. But as soon as you back down, you lose. It doesn't matter. I think like you lose.
I think you're right. And I think what Costco proved is that you need to control the narrative, control the story. Don't just like hem and haw and twiddle your thumbs. Come right out and say why you have a DEI program, how it helps your company, what you think they're doing. Just control the narrative. Like tell your own story. Don't just give up. Anyway, let's move on with more predictions, Matt. What else do you have?
So you said Costco. Costco is my next prediction.
Okay.
My prediction is, to this point, Costco will not be alone in 2025.
That's promising. What does that mean?
What it means is the pushback against DEI, right? Like as in people are pushing back on DEI. Well, there's going to be.
So this is a positive
gonna-
copycat of Costco.
It is basically a positive copycat. This is my uplifting story.
We
of
were
2025,
wondering.
my
We were
uplifting
wondering
2025 prediction.
which company would be the first to kind of fight back and put their flag into this, nonsense. And you're right. I think that a company that is so powerful and well known and successful like Costco doing it, it should open the door for a lot of other companies to follow, right?
So Costco had some unique characteristics, and we talked a little bit about it on the show the other day. But here's some data, all right? There are 1,023 mega, large, or mid-cap U.S. companies in our database. 721 of those companies have a diversity program of some kind that they disclosed. Any kind.
Okay. According to who? To what? What? According to MSCI data?
That's MSCI data. That's just a yes/no tag that says has a diversity program, okay, of some kind. That could just mean like they talk about inclusion, or it could mean they have like really deep diversity programs and employee resource groups and all that kind of stuff. 644 have disclosed targets or internal training around DEI. That's like they disclose, they set a DEI target or they have an internal training. That's actually a lot of companies. That's like more than 60% of mega, large, and mid-cap companies have done this. But only 94 companies out of those 1,000 have both highly democratic boards and strong female power at the board.
And you're describing
I
Costco.
Just described Costco, which Costco, this was the amazing part, and it gelled with your instinct on it. Costco was the number one company when you rank the companies by female power and democracy on the board. They were number one. They were the most democratic with the highest female power on the board. And they were the fourth most democratic in all the U.S. Like when you include the small caps, when you forget about DEI entirely, they're one
amazing parity at Costco, according to our data, according to freeflowanalytics.com data on board influence.
So when you look at that list, though, and I layer in stock returns, there are a bunch of companies that actually both are likely to be targeted because they're visible brands. They have a lot of DEI, but they have strong stock returns, strong female power, highly democratic, and they're likely to push back. Here's like two. Here's two. Procter & Gamble.
Okay, that's a good one.
They're up 8% and 31% in 1 and 5 year periods. They sell Braun, Gillette, Old Spice, like manly brands, right? Like, like I want my deodorant to be manly. Like they sell it, right? So they're a possible target, and they're like one ad away from showing a couple of non-binary people and then getting targeted by the Starbucks, right? Yeah. 39% female power, only 4% power deviation on the board, meaning they're super democratic. They're almost as democratic as Costco, and they have more female power than Costco does on their board right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, unlike a Walmart, not controlled by a family, right?
Controlled by a family.
This is why we harp on things like democracy, why it could matter, and what other company? Yeah.
Number 2, Altria. Altria is the cigarette company. Is there anything that, like, cigarettes are still manly, right? Like smoking a cigarette somewhere, of course. Like vaping.
Fixing a bridge.
Vaping feels not manly, but being at a construction site with a cigarette hanging out of your mouth is manly.
Yeah, like in the winter, like you're fixing a bridge, it's snowing, you're puffing on your cigarette. Yeah, exactly.
I love like rehashing an ad I saw in 1987. 1 5 year, they're up 3 and 25%. So the stock is up. It's not Costco's up 200% in a 5 year period. So we're talking about like there's still a gap, but they're up, right? They have 47% female power on the board and only 5% deviation. They have near parity of power between women and men on the board, and it's a highly democratic board. That's just 2, but there are companies out there that are still likely targets. That can now feel comfortable pushing back, and I think that's the beginning. It's the beginning of the pushback.
That might be the only prediction of yours that I'm gonna like. All right, let me give you a few of my predictions. These are non-ESG predictions, just random business pants predictions. So I'm actually predicting the next Bud Light, the next target of the Bud Light being. That's where this kind of like anti-woke corporate fervor began, right? Because Bud Light made the mistake of treating someone with dignity, right, last year, and then everyone got mad. Is that what happened? They gave someone a can of beer,
like 5
or
years ago. Yeah,
it does seem like a long time ago. But my guess for this is a company called Contour Brands. You ever heard of Contour Brands? In our database, they make Lee and Wrangler jeans, right? So doesn't that seem like a very red state MAGA kind of brand there?
I mean, I feel like I need to chop wood if I'm wearing Lee jeans. Isn't that?
And here's what I think's going to happen. I think that Contour Brands is going to accidentally do something that appears woke to somebody. I don't know what. Who knows what it could be? Maybe
it's a low bar.
Maybe a woman is working on fixing something, or I don't know what it could be. And then the MAGA mob is going to get triggered when they discover that in Contour Brands' 2024 proxy, that the company stated that they had increased board gender diversity in 2024 and that they were undertaking a search for a potential additional gender diverse director. They stated that explicitly. They said they were looking for a woman.
No!
So this is the perfect storm. I was looking around at different companies that they could target, and I found this to be the perfect storm because when you explicitly say that you're looking to add a woman to the board, that's it. I mean, that's enough to trigger a whole universe.
Right. It's over, right? It's over, yeah.
So that's one of my big predictions is that Contour Brands will be the next Bud Light. I hope Contour Brands is not listening to this because that sounds kind of scary.
Well, they weren't in my pushback list, so they're probably going to cave is what's going to happen.
You want me to go on, or you want to give a prediction?
I'll do a quick one.
Yeah.
I think we've been talking a lot about the divide between U.S. and Europe when it comes to like regulations, particularly like ESG or sustainability, climate regulations. I actually think the divide narrows because Europe moves hard right.
Well, they are, right? They are. Almost every big country is moving to the right.
Almost everyone is. Norway has a parliamentary election in 2025. Germany has their federal election. Greece has a presidential election. Czech parliament.
France is a mess.
France is a mess. Irish presidential election in which Conor McGregor, the UFC fighter, is currently a viable candidate.
Is that right? And
yes,
hasn't he been?
True.
Hasn't he been implicated on like numerous domestic abuse charges and whatnot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that doesn't really matter anymore, does it?
A socialist Me Too
I guess I'm woke for even pointing that out. Yeah. Sorry.
Justice warrior.
Sorry.
But I do think it means that the frameworks and regulations around ESG issues that were, frankly, shittily constructed in the first place. They were not well made in Europe. They are fractured. They're all over the place. They're highly prescriptive. They're nuts. But it's the perfect storm for a hard right move in the legislature to roll back a lot of those sort of frameworks and actually race to the bottom with the U.S. and destroying Earth.
Well, unfortunately, you're probably right on the nose on this one because let's not forget that it is the individual nations of the EU that send commissioners to the European Commission, right? And if all these governments are going to the right, then the person they send to this commission is going to be on the right, and it is that body, that legislative body, the European Commission, that I think you're right is going to roll everything back. They're just going to hack everything to bits. Yeah,
it's going to be ugly.
All right. I am declaring, I did it last year, but I feel even better about it this year. I think he's already made the case in the last few days. This is your year of Zuck. The Zuck returns. So, and this isn't even predicated on the fact that you realize, Matt, that TikTok is hanging in the balance here. TikTok might be done soon, right? I think today or soon, they're going to the Supreme Court and they're trying to stay alive. But TikTok might be over. And all that power, all those users, no one's going to benefit more than Mark Zuckerberg. But that isn't even why I made this prediction. I just think that, first of all, I think that Elon Musk is going to fade a little bit because not only is Tesla going to continue to suck and people are going to realize it's not that great, but I just think there's going to be too many battles with Trump, too many weird MAGA battles that I think his star is going to fade a little bit. And I just think Zuck is there waiting. I think He's going to emulate whatever Elon Musk does. I think that Meta's even going to try to, maybe they're even some pivotal acquisition. Maybe they're going to buy a media company or something. Or
Look,
I just think this is the year of Zuck. I
think you need to define what it means to be the year of Zuck, because
I just think that his what it means is that the dominance of his company is going to grow exponentially.
Okay, so if it's Zuck as company, then
Well, I don't mean Zuck is company, right? Everyone's been counting him out. They laughed at him for the metaverse.
Because it's
stupid. Elon's Musk wealth is now out of control, and Mark suffers in comparison. I just think that this is the year that Zuck regains the mantle of being the most insipid, powerful person in the world.
If I'm honest, right? Like, I think the reason why, like, Musk has a cult of personality that follows him. They think
that Zuck will never have.
Zuck will never have. Zuck is a little beta, like, puppy dog compared. Like, he's always behind. He doesn't actually have any original ideas. Literally, these people, most of their ideas don't come from themselves. They're stealing them from someone else.
Sure.
But Zuck is sort of obviously stealing them now. Now he's just like, we're just going to be X also, right? Like, and nobody likes that guy. Like, literally no one likes that guy. Right?
True. But he does have 3 billion worldwide users.
He's trying
at least
so desperately to be cool, like with his new hair and his new clothes and his like new kind of like, you know, UFC swagger.
Getting rid of fact checkers, moving to Texas.
Look how we're going to Texas.
Cozying up to Trump.
Like Trump's my bro, and like
I think
fooling literally anyone.
I think it's gonna work. I think fooling that world is pretty easy. I think it's gonna work.
I think he's always going to get Musk's sort of cast-offs, and he's just behind.
But what he's not going to do is try to become shadow president, and he's not going to end up in any battles with Trump, because now he's already kissed the ring. He's donating money. He's getting rid of fact checking. He's doing whatever he can to kind of pick up the pieces. So that's just one of my predictions. Anything else you want to add? I have a few more.
I don't have. I have a bunch of absurd ones at the end, but I have
go ahead. I have a bunch of absurd ones too. Why don't we go quickly with a bunch here? Go ahead.
I'm going to go one more real one, and then I'll get absurd. The real one is I think this is the year 2025 because we're seeing rollback in like everybody's rights. I think this is the year that investors, who I harp on maybe more than anybody else,
weekly.
Like every week, and investors are the asshole of the week.
Yes.
Nominee, right? Like I can't
a nominee at least. I don't always vote for them.
I cannot understand investors how you have so many rights that you don't use. I don't understand it at all. And
because they don't want to do a thing, Matt. They don't want to lose their jobs. They love their paychecks. They don't want to try. They don't want to like exert influence on the world.
When an activist comes in, all of a sudden everyone does their jobs because they're forced to, right?
Right.
And that to us is like a fascinating problem.
Well, because the activist investor provides cover, right? So now they can suddenly have an opinion about something.
So what happens when all of their rights are actually being eroded and taken away? Like, what do they do with that?
So what's your prediction?
The prediction is this is the rise of a new type of activist, the director activist. Ooh. It's a new model of activism where investors don't have to say, we're going to like break up the company, we're going to unlock some value. They're going to say, who's running these companies, right? Like we never look at who's running these companies. We just vote them all in.
We do. Yeah.
We do, but no investor really does. And it turns out when you look at the data, there are 3,400 companies out of 10,000 in the world, global companies, where there's at least one director who has historically and currently performed in the bottom third of all directors on TSR.
Sure.
Meaning a third of companies have a director on it that stinks.
Collecting a paycheck.
They're there for a paycheck. They've never actually...
Getting the last everything bagel. Yeah.
How dare they? 726 of those companies, more than half the board is comprised of bottom-dwelling directors on TSR.
So I like what you're saying, but what makes you think investors are going to wake up to this?
Because pretty soon, I think if my first predictions are correct, over the course of this year, they're going to start to lose the right to get rid of those directors because that's going to be outlawed in the United States. And Europe is going to... There are massive investors in both the U.S. and obviously in Europe. And China is too. I have this sense that there are people who like these rights.
Yeah.
And now is the time to use them.
Now
If
is certainly
you
the time.
don't,
Yeah.
You lose them, right?
Yeah.
And you can combine this with, we know that like there's 200 companies where not only more than half the board is bottom dwellers, but they're bottom dwellers on TSR and like carbon, right? Like
Sure.
they're bottom dwellers on multiple things. You can use the same information with the knowledge that that board has. So it's not just like, oh, they haven't given me shareholder returns. Like at Frontier Airlines, they have 8 directors with econ backgrounds and only 2 with transportation backgrounds. Like
Wow.
a director can go and say, Frontier, you're more than half of your board is on the bottom third of performance for TSR and carbon. You have 8 directors with backgrounds in finance and only 2 directors with backgrounds in transportation. This is the year where you can be a small activist. You can actually do that
It
thing.
sounds like you're just making it's just a great use case for our data at freeflowanalytics.com.
That's
what it sounds like.
That doesn't sound correct.
Did you just wedge a sales pitch into our 2025 prediction show? What's happening here?
I think cognitive
No, I
diversity
agree.
is a real thing. I think
agree.
Look, you get a right, you use the right or you lose the right. That's the history of humanity is filled with case studies around that.
All right,
This
let's
is
try
happening.
to. I like it. Let's try to wrap up the show in under an hour. Let's kind of like rapid fire through some of our final
right,
kind
let's
of
do
absurd.
some
I have a
absurd.
couple. I don't have to go into much detail on any of this stuff. I'm just gonna say I just think this is the year of drones. I don't know why. I just think drones. In fact, I think a CEO is gonna get fired for something to do with a drone. That's one of them. Oh, you're playing the music already.
I'm giving us background music for rapid fire.
Oh, okay.
All
I thought this was the closing music. No, this is just the rapid
this is
fire
nuggets
music.
for
I
you.
love it.
Rapid
Yeah.
fire music. Let's do it.
Come on, let's go. What do you got?
Here, I got a couple in AI, a couple about cowards, a couple about woke. Let's start with an AI one. AI sues a company for discrimination because it says it was unfairly taught DEI. That's one of my predictions.
Well, I like that one because I also have a prediction that is just AI. That's my prediction, just AI. How about this one, Matt? How about a significant increase in the banning of social media and teen smartphone use worldwide? We're going to see a real ramp up of. We're going to start to fight back against social media companies. But I'm thinking we're going to see a real ramp up this year. We're finally going to start treating smartphones and social media like tobacco, like alcohol, like vaping, like drugs. We're really going to start biting into that.
Prediction. That's like.
Okay, not absurd. Okay, I'll give you a fun one. Warren Buffett dies. Warren Buffett dies. How about that
come
prediction?
on, you predicted that every year.
Every year. What do you
here's a
got?
good
Give me
one.
something.
Here's a good one.
Give me something.
AI is added to a board of directors and labeled as gender neutral in a diversity matrix.
Oh no, that's not good though. That's woke. Isn't that woke?
I love it. I want to see that. I want to see the pushback on that.
How about this big prediction? I wanted to predict one big CEO that would leave that no one else would predict. Tim Cook. Tim Cook out at Apple this year.
Wow, Tim Cook out at Apple. No, that's not going to happen.
Yep.
But here's what will happen: AI avatars will actually be created to go to meetings for you.
That I believe.
Including your HR meetings where you may or may not be getting fired.
Well, I'm an AI avatar right now. I programmed this to okay. My final stupid prediction of the year is actually
I've got 4 more.
Well, okay, give me a couple of yours.
All right, I'll give you 2 more. I'll give you them about cowards. In the wake of Brian Thompson's murder, Mark Zuckerberg finally figures out the best use of the metaverse as a place for boards and executives to meet without leaving their houses.
Oh, I like this.
How about that?
These sound like 2034 predictions, but I'll take them. I do have a prediction that's just generative AI. Generative AI. That's a prediction? Does that count?
Yeah,
I also have one called headwinds. Just headwinds.
I like that those are going to be the ones next year. You're like, I think I was correct on that.
Yeah, I got right on headwinds. European headwinds.
Here's one. Companies begin disclosing whether their directors have. We're removing disclosure in a lot of places.
I like this one.
Companies begin disclosing whether directors have guns, the horsepower of their engines, of their cars.
Love it.
And whether they are white or a new race that they call extra white, just to fight all the DEI stuff.
You're starting to lose your mind a little bit. I'm going to end my predictions on a somewhat serious one. I was crunching all the numbers, doing all the math. I think after more than a decade of tenure, born-again CEO at Walmart born-again Christian Doug McMillon is going to begin his leadership transition out of the company. I think, Matt, he is going to have his eyes on the 2028 presidency. I think Doug McMillon's going to be president in 2020. That's my big prediction for 2025. Doug McMillon's going to start to segue out of Walmart.
Too bad no one knows who Doug McMillon is.
They're going to find out. They're going to find out.
I got two to end us on.
Yeah, let's go. Let's get out of here.
The woke parallel economy. Investors begin popping up and investing in the woke parallel economy.
Oh, whoa.
The anti-woke parallel
Wait, but I
economy.
thought the regular economy was the woke parallel economy.
Not anymore, because in the world of Trump, we need the woke parallel economy. So
right.
investors in the next 4 years are going to start looking for the wokest shit possible to invest in because they're
good. Invest in freeflowanalytics.com.
And finally, and this is my best prediction of 2025.
Let's go.
Retailers are beginning to create walled-off woke zones.
Whoa.
Like in stores, you know how they used to sell porn magazines behind the counter so like kids
right.
couldn't get it?
Yep.
You can now request to go into a walled-off zone called a woke zone when you enter like a Target where they keep their Pride merch, their feminine products.
Oh, no. Behind a walled zone. It's like contraband.
Oh. So that it doesn't offend any of the poor snowflakes in the red state.
Matt,
please, I want to.
Matt, didn't you just describe Massachusetts? Isn't that what Massachusetts is? Isn't that what New England is? It's a walled-off zone.
It's a walled-off woke zone, but you don't need an ID or be accompanied by an adult over 17.
All right,
so
brilliant. Let's get out of here. Brilliant.
2025
predictions. Come on.
That's all we got. We are Free Float.
That's a lot of effort there. A lot of effort.
I am your analyst, Tom Mascardi. We will be back next week with more stuff, more shows. There's just so much going on. Come back next week.
Let's get out of here.
Then,
come on.
Goodbye. I don't think we had an internet failure at all.
A lot of information. All right.
We do way too much. We do so much fucking work on these things, and like.
Yeah, I know, but I know
one person like watches it, and I can't figure out like.
It's all I know, but it's all this like attempt at marketing. Like, trust us. We think about stuff. Doesn't. Who knows if it works? All right, I gotta go.
Bye.
I gotta go to the bathroom later.